Fort Belvoir Elementary School opened in September 1998. Located on the United States Army's Fort Belvoir installation, the school educates military dependents. The name Belvoir is derived from a historic estate established by William Fairfax around 1740. This William Fairfax was a cousin of Thomas, the 6th Lord Fairfax, Baron of Cameron, for whom Fairfax County is named. The Belvoir estate was located on a peninsula surrounded by Accotink Bay, Gunston Cove, and Dogue Creek. Built on a bluff overlooking the Potomac River, the estate's manor house was given the name Belvoir, from the French for beautiful to see. In 1783, the manor house was destroyed in a fire and never rebuilt. George Washington wrote,
"It is a matter of sore regret when I cast my eye toward Belvoir, which I often do, to reflect that the former inhabitants of it, with whom we lived in such harmonious friendship, no longer reside there, and that the ruins can only be viewed as the mementos of former pleasures."
From the manor ruins, a path leads to an obelisk set in a small clearing. This monument, erected in 1924, marks the site of the Fairfax family's cemetery. Belvoir remained in the Fairfax family into the 19th century and then was sold. The land passed through several hands until the early 20th century, when it was acquired by the federal government. In 1912, Congress transferred the Belvoir property to the United States War Department for use as a training site for the Army Corps of Engineers. After the United States entered World War I in 1917, the Army acquired additional land in the area, greatly expanding the size of the camp. The installation was given the name Camp A.A. Humphreys, in honor of Civil War commander and former Chief of Engineers, Major General Andrew Atkinson Humphreys. As Camp Humphreys grew, more soldiers meant more families and more children. The earliest school at the camp was funded by the families whose children were enrolled there. In 1924, a long-standing partnership between the school system and the Army began when the Fairfax County School Board agreed that if the Army would provide the facility and equipment for a school, the board would provide a teacher. The first permanent brick elementary school building on post was built in 1934. Originally named for the fort, the building was renamed Hill Hall in honor of Colonel Bruce C. Hill in the 1960s. In 1935, President Roosevelt officially changed the installation's name from Humphreys to Fort Belvoir. In 1940, in order to accommodate the influx of soldiers drafted prior to World War II, the federal government acquired additional land for the fort on the opposite side of Route 1. This land included the historic African-American settlement of Woodlawn. Located close to present-day Fort Belvoir Elementary School, Woodlawn was home to a vibrant community of single-family homes, a Methodist church, a school, and an Oddfellows Hall. After acquiring Woodlawn and the surrounding area, the Army built Young's Village, a housing community for African-American soldiers and their families on the site. An elementary school was organized here for the children of these families in September 1940. 1 year later, the Fairfax County School Board officially deeded the Woodlawn Colored School property to the federal government. In July 1948, President Truman signed an executive order desegregating the United States military, but it wasn't until the early 1950s that the order was fully implemented. Families from Young's Village were relocated elsewhere on post, and the school and homes were demolished in the late 1950s. In 1957, Fort Belvoir Elementary School No. 2 opened. In 1960, the school was officially renamed in honor of Colonel William Jones Barden, a member of the Army Corps of Engineers. That same year, 2 additional elementary schools opened on post. Cheney Elementary School, built on the former site of Young's Village, was named in honor of Brigadier General Sherwood A. Cheney, a former Chief of Engineers. Markham Elementary School was named in honor of Major General Edward M. Markham, who was also a former Chief of Engineers. On June 17, 1998, Barden, Markham, and Cheney Elementary Schools were closed. The newly constructed Fort Belvoir Elementary School opened the following September. 3 of the older schools still stand today. Cheney, which was located adjacent to Fort Belvoir Elementary, was torn down to create athletic fields. In 2014, plans for the construction of a new elementary school at Fort Belvoir were approved. The deep roots of the educational partnership between Fairfax County Public Schools and Fort Belvoir continue to ensure that military-connected students will have the best education possible.